Even though my interview with Debbie Lenhard had nothing to do with Pete's forensic investigation, they still want to use it. They claim the interview should be removed. That being said, they are pursuing it vigorously and have even submitted something to YouTube, which they now want removed. On the other hand, it on 8 different platforms. The bombshell interview with Laura Lynn has set the internet ablaze after Joanie Lamb allegedly demanded that YouTube remove it. And now the question is being posed by everyone. Did she try to conceal anything? When it all began the discussion quickly escalated into a viral tempest, shocking Daystar followers and leading insiders to talk about damage control, secrets, pressure, and a futile effort to cover up the truth. Is it truly possible for something to vanish once it's online? It all began with a casual chat. 2 women sat opposite from one another, with a camera silently rolling between them. No dramatic introduction, no shocking news. The outspoken interviewer, Laura Lynn Thompson, had asked Debbie Lenhard to open up about a so-called forensic case that had been plaguing her for quite some time. Examination concerning an individual known as Pete. Debbie wasn't there to engage in idle chatter. Nobody else showed there, but she did, armed with schedules, notes, and questions. The statements had weight from the beginning, despite the serene tone. Concerning paperwork that has gone missing, Debbie competing claims, with many issues remaining unresolved. To her, it didn't appear at all like the thorough inquiry that had been made public. Instead of seeking the truth, she felt like someone was trying to cover it up. Laura Lynn hardly took a breather while she was talking. All she did was listen. Even from a distance, observers could sense the energy of the room. The interview did not immediately go viral after going live. In the beginning, word got around slowly, in secret Facebook groups, via Telegram chats, whispered in gatherings at the church. Everything changed, though, once a handful of major networks uploaded clips to YouTube and Rumble. Speculation, debate, and demands for answers ensued. Observing a spark captivate parched leaves was like to that. The impact of the film was due to more than just Debbie's words. That was her way of putting things. Like someone who had witnessed too much to be silent, calm, and certain. Some praised her courage. Critics accused her of being careless. On the other hand, everyone was watching. The interview quickly gained thousands of views across various platforms and went viral within a few days. This peaceful hour-long conversation would escalate into a raging tempest, and Laura Lynn had no clue. However, rumors spread like wildfire as the shares increased, and in a distant land, individuals, those with authority, began to take notice. The positive kind, that is. Something far greater than either of them had anticipated was about to be set in motion by what started as a casual, sincere chat. The news of the interview with Laura Lynn initially reached Joanie Lamb during one of her employees texted her. A brief message. "This may be of interest to you." She was in the middle of responding to emails at her office when her curiosity got the best of her. Pressing play, she followed the link. For what, the sight chilled her to the bone. Laura Lynn Thompson and Debbie Lenhard were shown on screen having a composed conversation about a forensic investigation. The discussion wasn't about discovering the truth, though, as Joni listened. "I was thinking about casting doubt on honesty." Debbie spoke in a steady yet incisive manner. She spoke with an air of self-assurance, but her assertions were disturbing. There were missing papers, conflicting accounts, and what seemed like holes in an investigation involving a man named Pete, whom Joni knew well. Retching in her chair, Joni crossed her arms clenched, her expression grave. This wasn't meaningless small talk. She could tell right away. It seemed like an assault to her, full of harmful assumptions and false information. The omission of Daystar's name didn't prevent anyone in her inner circle from making the connection. And once the connections were made, the consequences might be enormous. The clip had begun to spread by morning the following day. Many viewers were reacting by tagging her name in comments, grabbing phrases, and creating reaction videos. Does this pertain to Daystar? Who or what is Joni trying to hide? Since most of it was based on speculation, it was irrelevant. Things were looking up for the protagonist. An urgent meeting was convened by Joni. A lengthy glass table in the middle of her office was surrounded by her senior producers, legal team, and communications staff. Meeting space. Anxiety was heavy in the air. She paused at crucial points and fast-forwarded through sections of the interview while playing it on a giant screen. All over the room, Debbie's remarks resounded. Different epochs are involved. None of the papers have turned up. Secrets are being kept. After the video aired, there was a brief hush. After much speculation, one of her solicitors expressed the general consensus. Things may turn ugly. Slowly, Joni nodded. Contrary to popular belief, her anger was more subdued. She seemed calm and collected. Her concentration was icy. Complain, she advised today. A take-own request was prepared and sent to YouTube by her team by noon. It was firm. There was defamation, misrepresentation, and damage in the video. They said people's reputations could be hurt and that viewers would be confused by the false assertions it contained. This wasn't about Joni's ego, she said. The focus was on safeguarding. She had spent decades building a ministry with her late husband, Marcus. This was journalism cloaked in spiritual warfare, in her view. Nevertheless, paperwork isn't the only thing that the internet takes into consideration. It didn't take Joni long after submitting the request for her to realize that she was already behind schedule. Not only was the interview posted on YouTube, you could find it on Facebook Reels, Rumble, Telegram, BitChute, and Vimeo. 2 new versions appeared for everyone that was rolled out. The more she fought to keep it contained, the quicker it spread. With her experts forewarned her of the Streisand effect. The concept that making an effort to conceal something makes others scrutinize you more closely. However, Joni was unconcerned. It shouldn't be there if it's not true. They were informed by her. I won't let lies stand unchallenged. She began secretly contacting credible pastors, media personalities, and Christian friends and acquaintances. She was not requesting pity. She was constructing a strong foundation. This, she clarified, was not about censoring truth, putting an end to rumors before they ruin decent individuals. They can treat any of us badly if they can treat me this way, she told one pastor. However, not everyone shared her perspective. Subtly, a few of her co-workers cautioned her that attempting to delete the video might make it go viral. Some others felt she ought to make a public declare her stance, address the controversy directly, and provide an explanation. Joni, however, was hesitant. Things could be misconstrued, potentially misunderstood intentions. When it included prominent religious figures, the media couldn't get enough of a scandal. Because of this, she decided remaining silent, or seemingly so. She remained silent in public. In her own mind, she was unrelenting. She dispatched her team to track down YouTube and collect evidence in an effort to put pressure on the company to take action. She instructed her employees to go over the content guidelines of Daystar, thoroughly examine each host and visitor. She would not be caught unaware by another interview if this tempest had been caused by the first one. Back at her house, she felt the crushing burden of it all. This was unlike any criticism she had ever faced before. External foes weren't the only ones. Her world was known by those on the inside, who were dropping hints that she might be hiding something. At night, she would pace her living room while praying and asking God for direction. She prayed in a low voice, Lord, please help me to preserve what you have created. The following Sunday, she repeated her long-standing ritual of walking onto the platform at Daystar's Dallas studio, chanting, Let truth win. The lights were on high and nobody was talking. Unfazed by the criticism, she maintained a steady smile. She appeared unfazed to her admirers, yet the calm exterior betrayed a lady battling for the stability of her world. Laura Lynn, meanwhile, was unyielding. In her tweets and posts, she assured her supporters that the interview will be visible across 8 platforms. In response to what they saw as Joni's censoring, her fans gathered around her and evidence that the reality was stinging too much. The web was divided. Alternately, you could side with Laura in a pose to protect Daystar. To Joni, this wasn't mere background noise. It felt like a personal test. All news stories, videos, and comments, the ones that cast doubt on her honesty and faith, stung. Among the world's greatest Christian networks, Daystar was her labor of love for decades. The internet, which she had previously utilized to spread the gospel, seemed to be turning on her now, but even so failed to withdraw. Carefully and silently, she stepped back. She reassured her close group that she would not respond violently. With honesty and perseverance, I will battle it. However, the public's perception of the truth has already risen to the level of subjectivity. Each person has their own story. The plot continued to develop independently, regardless of her words or silence. In the end, Joni's reaction was more measured, incisive, and subdued than the outburst her detractors had anticipated. She wasn't vying for public attention. She was fiercely defending her beliefs, her legacy, and her message. Her backers saw it as a sign of her power. Fear was what her detractors saw. To Joni, though, it was all about staying alive. Amidst stay, it seemed like the only conflict worth waging was the struggle for survival in a world where a single video might destroy years of hard labor. The following morning, the internet had already catapulted the Laura Lynn interview into a far larger phenomenon than anybody had anticipated. Nothing more than a chat ensued, a verbal brawl broke out, and no one could put out the flames. You couldn't miss the clip. All the way to TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, Telegram, and YouTube also. Not everyone was merely observing. They were analyzing it, paraphrasing it, and arguing about it. There was a far larger debate over authority, censorship, and the truth that used every moment of that interview as proof. It appeared at first to be nothing more than a passing fad, the type of thing that goes viral for a few days and then disappears. This one, though, was different. Everything changed when Joanie Lamb's plea to remove was made public. A call for free speech erupted from what had been mutterings regarding a forensic probe. The comment sections were inundated, with viewers who accused Joni of attempting to censor the truth hashtags, such as "This what is Joni hiding?" and just "Let the video stay" began trending in smaller online communities, before expanding to a larger audience. Many were proud of Laura Lynn for defying a powerful media conglomerate. They praised her courage and boldness, saying she was the voice Christianity needed, one who would stand up to influential people and expose their hidden agendas, a pair of hands. According to them, this was about more than just one interview. The system in question had been left unregulated for an excessive amount of time. They deduced from Joni's reaction that the video had touched a nerve and that there was a cover-up. On the other hand, Joni's backers had a quite different take on things. They thought it was a risky video, the careless dissemination of urban legends and partial truths masquerading as news. Rumor has it that Laura Lynn was callous about the potential harm her remarks could inflict. There was nothing secretive about Joni to them. By shielding people's honors and putting a stop to rumors before they could ruin lives, she was acting like a responsible leader should. Censorship is not occurring. When one of her admirers tweeted, "This is wisdom," the web went into a schism. Some were saying that the truth should never be muzzled, while others were waving flags of free speech. Those who argued that individuals should take responsibility stood opposed, stating that uninformed freedom might lead to the downfall of innocent individuals. Standing between them was YouTube, a website entangled in an unwinnable struggle. Creators started posting reaction videos, podcasts, and live streams regarding the controversy when word got out. Some of them were like detectives, studying every angle of the interview. Critics have compared it to church scandal gone digital and made fun of the issue. Each person's opinion fueled the conflagration. Someone said they knew something none else did. Some claimed to have evidence that Daystar's solicitors were intimidating independent artists. It was unable to confirm any of it. Truth was hardly irrelevant at that stage. Realities had taken a back seat to the narrative. It had evolved into a feeling. All of this was hard for Joni to watch happen. Unfortunately, her reputation was taking a nosedive. She remained silent despite her refusal to defend herself on TV. Individuals began reposting audio recordings of her speeches and using her own words to make fun of her and spread memes. According to one reviewer, she is great at preaching the truth, but she crumbles when the spotlight is on her. Not only did it damage her reputation, but it also undermined her entire purpose. Also, simultaneously, Laura Lynn was unexpectedly thrown into the limelight. Suddenly, her number of subscribers quadrupled. Messages of love and hate flooded her email. She was branded a liar by some and a hero by others. She refused to budge. "They must be making a serious effort to silence me," she informed her audience in a subsequent message. "When it happens, I'll know I've hit my mark." The original interview took longer to disseminate than that one cue. Social media sites were flooded with screenshots of her words. She was transformed into a symbol of defiance by the people. She was a hero to some, but not everyone. Her approaches came under scrutiny from a few journalists. They brought up the issue that Debbie's assertions were being taken as fact without any evidence to back them up. Many felt that Laura Lynn was capitalizing on controversy to increase her click-through rate and views. However, news stories could no longer contain the reality. People no longer merely understood the story. It had become an emotional experience. Moderators and lawyers gathered at YouTube's headquarters to discuss next steps. A request to remove content from Joni's team was occupying a desk, but there were repercussions for every action. They would face accusations of censorship if they removed the video. If left unattended, they may be subject to legal action. Nobody came out ahead in the scenario. At the same time, the film was persisting across platforms that were unconcerned with take-own notifications. The situation had become virtually unbelievable by the end of the week. Concerning it, smaller churches were arranging prayer gatherings. Truth in the digital era was the topic of pastors' sermons. Several news organizations reported on the incident, describing it as a conflict between Christian media and free speech. It grew increasingly impossible to stop the interview the more people spoke about stopping it. The ordeal was unbearable for Joni. She had based her entire existence on television, on managing the message, displaying one's faith in an organized and refined manner. She had lost control of the storyline for the very first time. Because of the internet, it had become something permanent, wild and untamed. It was affirmation, evidence that Laura Lynn's voice could be heard, important, that individuals were eager for openness and not scared to challenge those in charge. Everyone watching, though, saw it as more than just a quarrel. It reflected back how easily falsehoods may spread in this day and age when opinions take flight over evidence. There was no longer limited to Joni or Laura alone. When everyone has a camera and a platform, the tale becomes about who gets to mold it, about trust and believe. One reality became increasingly apparent as the dust continued to rise. Full command had slipped from anyone's grasp. The interview had escaped its confines and would never return. The internet remained active even after the chaos subsided. The tone has shifted. Something heavier and slower began to replace the fury, the debates, and the trending hashtags. Quiet contemplation. People couldn't take their eyes off the TVs as they pondered the implications of the scandal for the realms of religion and journalism, beyond the names of Joanie Lamb and Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson. For a long time, Christian radio and television had been considered as a sanctuary, a place where listeners could get away from it all, find prayer, hope, and connection. Confidence was the foundation. People thought that the characters on TV were being led by a higher power. The words they spoke were not motivated by greed or power, but by faith. Trust, however, was not the same after this storm. Everyone could feel the crack as something had broken. There was more than one interview at the heart of Joni and Laura Lynn's feud. Mastery was at stake. In this information era, who gets to define truth? By putting a halt to disinformation before it caused harm, Joni thought she was protecting integrity, ministries, and reputations. For too long, Laura Lynn felt she was revealing a type of concealment that had been allowed to persist unchecked. It was clear to both ladies that they were acting morally. The public, however, began to view the line between conviction and command got underway. The issue of censorship became inevitable as the situation escalated. Was Joni attempting to mold the truth, or was she genuinely shielding it? Was Laura Lynn telling the truth, or was she trying to stir up controversy? Such were the inquiries that reverberated throughout online communities, audio podcasts, and religious groups. As the discussion progressed, an unsettling fact became apparent. Censorship and personal accountability had blurred into invisibility. Some were yelling that the church had softened and that its leaders had amassed too much authority. Clandestine, evading scrutiny with the help of bright lights and tax breaks. Rather than being authentic, religion media had become a brand, according to them. On the flip side, there were many who voiced concerns about how the internet had empowered individuals to become their own judges, claiming that evidence was no longer taken seriously and that fury had replaced it. Accountability had evolved into a synonym for humiliation in public. Everybody was tired, and they were both right. While hiding behind the screens, Joni made an effort to regain her balance. Even after she ceased making public comments on the video, the atmosphere remained charged. The aftermath was spoken about at Daystar's offices. Transparency and explanations were demanded by viewers who wrote in. Contributions were halted by a few long-term backers. Some people stepped up their support by sending prayers and words of love, informing her to maintain her strength. Joni skimmed the entire text. On occasion, She remained in her office far after everyone else had left. The studio fell into a hushed twilight as the lights went out, and everyone wondered how this had possibly happened. It all began with a dream, on television to share messages of faith and optimism. An internet uproar concerning control and censorship had erupted, and she had become its focal point. The mayhem was playing out in Laura Lynn's world as well. In the church, she had hoped to start a discussion about being truthful. However, the unending criticism, allegations, hate mail, and uproarious commentary were not in her expectations. Even among her own friends, there were many who cautioned her against going too far. Rumor had it that she was altering the course of history. Amidst the cacophony, she perched at ease. She sat at her desk and stared at her inbox. She felt the peculiar weight of knowing that her comments would have ramifications that were broader than she had anticipated. It was getting harder and harder to disregard the broader view. A new set of expectations had emerged for faith media, which had previously been characterized by trust and devotion. Audiences weren't merely observers any longer. They served as commentators, fact-checkers, and critics. They might quickly discover out if their pastor was involved in a lawsuit or had a private aircraft by pausing a lecture and searching Google for his name. A new era of unquestioning faith was dawning. Beyond Daystar, the Joanie Lamb incident had set off a chain reaction. Many influential Christians, including pastors and ministry leaders, began to question how open they really were. Churches covertly retained public relations experts. Boards were examined by ministries. It was palpable to all. Everywhere there was keeping a careful eye on things. In a world where a single viral video might ruin decades of reputation, the old methods of doing things, closed doors, hidden ledgers, unspoken rules, did not work anymore. Also, though, something more fundamental was taking place. Underneath the dynamite, the turmoil, a new awareness emerged. People were more than just furious. They needed food badly, craving genuine moments. In honor of religious leaders who were humble enough to admit when they were wrong and who avoided flowery language in favor of authenticity. For government agencies that were transparent with their finances and did not make excuses. Because the truth wasn't scripted or authorized by public relations. The dispute surrounding the interview with Laura Lynn became emblematic of a more significant issue. Faith and openness clash in today's world. This had nothing to do with YouTube or censorship, not now. The question at hand was the sustainability of religious communities in an uncontrollable truth environment, kept confidential. It was acknowledged by a few leaders. Fear of what? Not exposure, but misunderstanding. Any slip-up, any flawed moment, they were afraid, could be turned into a scandal. They were afraid that algorithms designed to reward anger would eat up genuine faith, faith that is messy and human. Others, however, recognized a chance. For them, this represented God's plan for organizing, of enforcing responsibility that had been disregarded for an excessive amount of time. They complained that the light was painful because it was illuminating forbidden areas. After that, Joni had a few weeks of calm but burdensome activity. Things on the internet had begun to. The questions remained, though they faded. Even though she was in pain, she continued to host shows, record devotionals, and keep smiling. Those closest to her, though, could perceive it. The shift. She lacked the same glint in her eyes. Although she had battled in conflicts previously, this one took place outside of a courtroom or boardroom. The battle took place in public on the internet, with total strangers criticizing her every move. Laura Lynn found the attention to be a mixed bag of benefits and drawbacks. Not only did her fan base expand, but so did their expectations. People wanted her to maintain her stance, ask more questions, and reveal more. However, she had a sneaking suspicion that this wasn't about seeking for the next scandal. Part of the plot involved coercing the church, and perhaps even herself, to tackle an easy inquiry. When everyone thinks they know the truth, what does it mean? Even after months had passed and algorithms had discovered new scandals to investigate, the Joanie Lamb and Laura Lynn narrative continued to serve as a subtle lesson, a warning that religion does not transform people, flawless, and that authority, even in the ministry, requires constant scrutiny. The collapse of the barriers between the pulpit and the public in the digital age was demonstrated, and no amount of public relations could restore them. People who know that trust isn't something you can force someone to have will write the script for religion media in the future. It must be earned by the power of sincere speech, Perfectionism is no longer desired by viewers. A truthful answer is what they seek. The type that requires no alteration whatsoever, those that hold up under close examination. Perhaps that is the ultimate purpose of this storm. Something genuine was emerging despite the mayhem and violence. A fresh approach to discussing faith. Living unfiltered, awkward, but real. Because if there's one thing that the Joanie Lamb and Laura Lynn narrative proved, it's that trust in the today's world is resilient in the face of scrutiny.